Om Shanti, everyone, and good morning to all of you.
Om
Good
Shanti,
morning, Sister
Shraddhaji.
Pratibha. Om Shanti.
Om
Hope you are keeping
Shanti,
well.
good
God
morning.
bless.
Keeping well. I hope all of you are well too.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So, this morning, a lovely theme that we've selected, and that's the theme of kindness. And in this morning's meditation, I had a very lovely insight for myself. You know, many times it's easier for us to be kind to strangers because we can see a need out there, and it's a natural response that comes from our hearts to help and to make a difference and to offer something that makes someone else's life a little easier and more pleasant. But the challenge always comes to maintain that attitude of kindness. Sometimes it's not that people need something from us physically, and for us to do something or something like that, but it's in the attitude, it's in the vision. And many times when it comes to people that are closer to us, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And one reason why it becomes more challenging is that often we have expectations. We expect certain responses, behaviors, responsibilities, accountabilities from the people around us. And when those expectations are not met, then often it creates within us a feeling of not being respected or not being acknowledged or not being appreciated, or and this feeling that it invokes in us then results in us reacting to the other. So that's usually a pattern that comes up. And my insight this morning really was that when we end up having expectations of people around us, it is directly related to how I see myself. You know, it's like if I see myself in a lesser form, then I would actually expect others to support me in the ways that helps to uplift me in a way. So I would need you to acknowledge me so that I feel more confidence in who and what I am. Or I would need you to show an act of care to me to know that I mean something, I'm of value. So it all comes back to how I see myself. And you know, just the impression that came for me this morning was really when I looked at the role models that have been such an influence in my life, Daddy Janki, for example, Daddy Prakash Mini. And they started this journey as young girls, you know, really 15. Daddy Janki was about 20, 21. So they were very young. And when they came to India, the first 14 years, of course, they were very much nurtured. But when they came to India, then they had to step out and had to go out into different communities, worlds that were foreign to them, and worlds that societies that were very traumatized after the partition, but also an extremely patriarchal society. So they had to step out into that world to serve and to start connecting. And they faced many challenges, but what I noticed in the way they shared and some of the stories of the experiences that others have had with them as well was the vision that they held of themselves. You know, they didn't see themselves as a young, innocent, inexperienced, naive, whatever labels we put onto people, a woman in this very complex environment. But they seen themselves as instruments for a higher purpose. And they had such deep faith and a conviction about that what they lacked in terms of worldly knowledge, they had deep faith that because of their connection and because of their vision of themselves, of how they saw themselves, and what they felt the purpose of their being there was all about, was to really bring benefit and improvement into the societies in which they were. That deep faith and vision that they had created in them this capacity to embrace people with a very loving and caring and even clear sense of attitude and approach in the work that they had to do. So it was almost like the vision that they held of themselves enabled them to embrace the diversity around them, to embrace the challenges around them with a lot of love, with a lot of clarity, with a lot of internal confidence and courage, a sense of fearlessness that they had because of that deep conviction internally that they held. So I was playing with this for myself in a way to see that when I do have expectation of another, how do I see myself in relation to the other, that I'm creating this expectation. And of course, when the expectation's not met, then there is a reaction internally. Sometimes we may not say anything, but there are extra thoughts that do come up. So looking at this thing of kindness and the expansion of the heart to be embracing and to hold others, it comes back to how I see myself and how do the vision that I hold of myself. So those were just some of my reflections in my morning meditation that I thought connects lovely with this morning's topic that I wanted to share. But let's look at our video for this morning, and then we'll take up further conversations on that. So Danielle, if you could please play us this morning's video. Thank you. Wasn't that cute?
Hilarious.
Yeah, it is sweet. So I think one of the things that I really liked about that little video was, the act of kindness. And it's the little things that we can do, just considering another, um, just makes such a difference in terms of how I feel as an individual. Really to experience joy and to experience a sense of fullness, it is when we really learn to share. The more we take and hold on to, it doesn't make us feel fuller. And you can see that sometimes some people have a tendency to hoard. And the more that they hold on to, it's like the more you need. But when you learn to share and to give and give of yourself, I think that's the key thing. Not so much about things, but just sharing and distributing in a way, it really does create a feeling of a sense of abundance within me, a sense of joy within me. And I think what I really liked of that little video was that guy actually discovered he had a hand. And that the hand can be of so much of use in a way. And so that's the feeling in a way that we have many treasures. And as we begin to share and as we begin to express through those treasures, that it grows within us. The saying that goes that a candle's flame never diminishes when it lights another flame, another candle in a way. And that's the whole thing, that our internal treasures that we do have, that when we do share that, it grows. It grows in abundance within ourselves. And we begin to feel the joy internally as we begin to share. So that was one element of it that I find was very interesting and important for us to consider in that regard. Another aspect as well is that how when we begin to share things, what I find is that it invites new energy. And the sharing really begins, as I started off by talking about my vision for myself. But in the meditation we had this morning, one aspect of kindness that is very good as well is really the vision that I can begin to cultivate towards others. And the key thing really is that when I train myself in a way, and it is something that I have to teach myself, to really to observe the positive good qualities in another. And when I do that, it like creates a fresh energy. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to be in Boston for a month because of work. And it had been quite a difficult year the before, and because I was away from my usual environment, sometimes that offers a lovely space to reflect and relook at things. And so one exercise that I had done was that I made a list of all the people that I live with, that I work with, that I have to engage with, those that were coming to the center regularly. I just made a whole list of everyone. And I sat quietly and I, really started reflecting on what is the one particular quality that I really appreciate in each one of them. So as I sat and I did this, I wrote it down. I wrote it down for each one of them, what I seen as their speciality or their virtue that stands out significantly, or just what I appreciate of them, and sometimes it could be someone is just very very light and easy, and just seeing that. And so I just made a whole list and I wrote it down. And what emerged for me after doing that exercise was that I really felt extremely light, and grateful for the people that I do have around me, and grateful for the opportunities I've had in terms of working with them, and in terms of really learning from them, because everyone has something to offer us to learn from. And so it shifted my whole internal feeling inside. So after the month when I had to come back home, it was like I was re-entering my space, but with a completely different feeling and attitude and vision. And so I've used this exercise many times, and I'm going to encourage you to do that, today at some point for yourself as well. But during one of my retreats that we were having in Cape Town, I did this exercise with a group. And I very distinctly remember one of the participants. And she shared that when she had to write down, I said your most significant relationships. So she said when she wrote down, she had just got married again, and so she had a child from her previous marriage, and it's a huge adjustment and things like that with personal life, with work life, things like that. And she said when she wrote down her son's name and she had to think about the quality or speciality or virtue that she appreciated in him, she had such a realization that her attitude and her vision towards her son was that he's just a responsibility. She thought of her son, and it was just like the work I have to do, the responsibility I carry. And it really it moved her quite deeply, and was a bit of a shock in her for herself, in a way, that she actually didn't, in that moment she realized that she had been so overwhelmed by her responsibility that she stopped loving him for who he is, but got so involved in the practical elements of fulfilling this responsibility. And it took her some time to really sincerely reflect and think about that, who he is as a soul, and what is the gift that he brings to her, and what can she appreciate. And so it is a very useful thing for us to do very, very consciously. And that how often do I look at those around me just as a responsibility? How often do I look at those around me as just individuals for different functions? And sometimes we can live past each other because we just doing the practical things, and we forget to connect with each other. And when we stop connecting with each other in a meaningful way, then we stop loving each other, and then each other's little faults or habits become more sort of pronounced than what they actually offer. And so just for my own self, in terms of my own well-being, but also the way I relate to others and the quality of relationships that I want to cultivate and maintain with others, it is about taking a moment, stepping back and checking, how do I see the other? And it really comes back to what we started off this whole series with, in a way, that soul consciousness, that I don't own anyone, nor am I owned by anyone, that we are all individuals on this journey, and we come together through various connections and relations, but ultimately each one is an individual soul. And so how do I see the other? And do I see the other for who they are? And can I appreciate what the other brings in my space? And then when I begin to hold that vision for the other, observe the generosity that naturally emerges from my heart. It's not that I like sometimes some virtues I don't feel can be practiced, like I'm practiced to being kind. I feel it's a natural emergence when I come to a deeper place of my own truthfulness within. Because it's a natural quality, it's an intrinsic quality of the soul. So it all stems back to that vision of myself and vision of the other. And when I work on that level of soul consciousness, then there's a natural exchange of a very truthful and loving energy that emerges. And that is what kindness is all about. And I can see then and respond to things around me, not from a place of duty, but from just a natural space of just being and connecting and cooperating with the other. So that's what triggered for me when I watched this, and I'd like to leave a little space for anyone to ask further questions if there are, and what triggered for you, and just your own comments. So please feel free and unmute, or you can, you're welcome to just also write in the chat. But yeah, I'd like to hear what thoughts triggered for you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti Sharad. Yeah, please do share.
So when I first saw that man, I actually had that feeling of whether this guy is just arrogant or what, you know what I mean? And then I said to myself, maybe he's not arrogant. Maybe he's just like, in that colloquial terms we call, he's in the dwell, where he's just absorbed with too many issues around him and inside of him that he can't even relate to anybody else outside of him until that moving moment when that lady got hold of his arm and eventually pinched his cheek. I think that was his moment of realization that he can be in the present moment and he can change his own life and perhaps those of others so much. So that really stood out for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, and your first comment is interesting, that when we see something like this, how quickly we can get into the judgment, oh, this guy's arrogant, and so often we can easily put people into little boxes, and so it's a challenge for us as well, that can I see the other and not put them in a box, and find a way to reach out to see there is another side in everyone that is sometimes just waiting to emerge, and sometimes it's people don't know how to, and so this little old lady just showed him how he can, because she didn't hold a preconceived idea of him. She just held on to his hand, and that was it. Okay, great. Anyone else?
Om Shanti Pratibha-ben.
Om Shanti Shari.
Sometimes, you need that a little nudge or an incident to catapult you to the next stage. Sometimes we so, like Sharon said, you're caught up in the daily life that you forget. It's not that you want to forget, you just get caught up in this whole world of yours. And then you need that little incident or even something good or something bad to happen to you to catapult you to the next level. And it just changes your thinking. That one small thing, some incident in your life, and things, you just begin to see a whole new world.
Yeah, yeah. It's so true in a way that we need a nudge from life sometimes, to say there's a bigger picture and there's something greater. It's so true when we get so caught up in our day-to-day routines and our responsibilities in a way, and our own little world, we can get quite consumed into that. But just being a little bit open and being more present to what's around me enhances my own experience. And one of the things I often have felt as well, and my own learning has been that my own development in terms of even skills or ways of doing things actually emerge, and opportunity come for it when I actually volunteer myself for it. It's like one of the things that has helped me, develop a variety of skills has always been to say, let me try, or offering myself to do it, even though I don't know how. But that in itself then provides the opportunity to learn, to seek out. And it's amazing how the universe will also support you when you hold that intention. So there's always that feeling of internal movement, rather than being closed in and living in that little space, but that internal movement that keeps expanding my world and expanding my universe. Yeah. Okay, so Bianca is sharing this guy so self-absorbed to reach out with self-confidence. This lead to inner happiness and the glow that expands. Yeah, it is true. It's in my giving that I become full, and then I radiate, and I can make a difference. The sun never thinks I'm shining, but because of its own fullness, it brings light wherever it is. Great. So wonderful. I'm going to lead us into a meditation, but I see there's been a request for the link for this morning session. So I'm going to ask Danielle to please share the link while we having the meditation. Thank you. Okay, so let's just take in a deep breath in, inviting the fresh air into our body, inviting that feeling of newness, inviting that feeling of abundance within ourselves. And with each breath, I just gently step inwards and return to the sacred space within me of being peaceful and calm. I awaken my deeper awareness of seeing myself as a soul. An infinitesimal being of light, a divine creation. I see myself as a child of God. And in this moment, I remind myself the gifts that I have received. Looking deeply into my heart, let me just feel a sense of gratitude for the gifts that I have received. The gift of learning, the gift of caring, the gift of sharing, the gift of being loving or creative or determined or courageous. Let me in this moment acknowledge my inner qualities, knowing that they are gifts I have received from the divine. And today I hold this intention that just as I have received these divine gifts, today I will see all those around me and those that I meet. I will seek out and acknowledge their positive quality, their speciality, what I learn from them, what I appreciate in them. So just to hold that feeling of fullness and abundance in me, and then to see the light and beauty in those around me. The deepest act of kindness is to affirm the best, the highest in another. And so I hold that intention and practice for today. I am light. I radiate light, and I see light. And in this way, we create a world of light. Om Shanti.